Warning, this video contains a minor spoiler from Avengers Endgame. If you haven't seen the movie by now, you're living under a rock and should go see it. If you don't care about spoilers and just want to hear my thoughts on the new Spider-Man movie, then feel free to stick around. No pun intended.
Spider-Man Far From Home is just the kind of MCU Spider-Man goodness I needed. If you saw my video on Spider-Man Homecoming, you'll know that I thought it was a perfectly fine Marvel movie, but not an entirely great Spider-Man movie. That character means so much to me, so while I liked the movie as a whole, there were just some elements that I felt were missing compared to the other ones. Though it's still better than whatever the hell Venom was.
Hey, I'm sorry about Venom.
I'm sure you are.
Then when trailers for Far From Home started coming out, it seemed like it was gonna give me more of what I was looking for. And after finally getting to see it, I can confirm that it certainly did. 8 months after the events of Avengers Endgame, Peter Parker decides to try and take a break from the superhero business and go on a trip to Europe with his classmates. But when an interdimensional threat comes to town in the form of the Elementals, everyone's favorite eye-patch-wearing former S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, basically hijacks Peter's summer vacation and forces him to help put a stop to their carnage. Joining him is a fishbowl-headed tech guy who goes by the name Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And along the way, Peter comes to grips with the death of Tony Stark and the responsibility that comes with being a superhero. Peter's arc in this movie is a pretty interesting reversal of his arc in Homecoming. That one seemed to be about him learning to embrace the Peter Parker side of him, and here it's about him embracing the Spider-Man side of him. But while Homecoming didn't really give him much in the way of motivation outside of looking out for the little guy and wanting to impress Tony, now he doesn't have Tony to look to for guidance, and there's a lot of pressure on him to step up and take his place. So, in a way, Peter finally has an Uncle Ben figure to push him forward. Mysterio was one of my favorite characters in the Spider-Man mythos, so I was really excited to see him here. This won't come as a surprise to anyone, even if you know nothing about him, but he turns out to be the main villain. And while the reveal sorta comes out of left field at first, his plan makes a lot more sense as the film progresses, and I love how it ties back to his visual effects roots from the comics. He also has a connection to a previous MCU character, which is a bit much, but definitely gives him more of a motive. Jake Gyllenhaal absolutely kills it in this role, and major kudos to Marvel for finding a way to make that green spandex, purple cape, and fishbowl work so well in live action. Far From Home has a similar aspect to Homecoming, where it has a pretty solid first half, but a more enjoyable second half. But while I felt Homecoming focused a little too much on the awkward teenage high school stuff, this one knows when to cut away from it to keep the pace going. Parts of the film do feel a bit rushed, and it has characters that don't really add anything to the story, like this guy named Brad that has the hots for MJ. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot more energy, a bigger sense of scale, and more creative action sequences. I also found the movie less predictable than Homecoming, and being predictable doesn't necessarily hinder a film, but I could rarely ever tell where Far From Home was going to go, and that got me way more invested. Aspects of the movie also feel like well-deserved fan service, especially after coming off the emotional minecart ride that was Avengers Endgame. Stan Lee sadly doesn't make a cameo due to his unfortunate passing, but there's one cameo that I'm sure will make a lot of people extremely happy. I know I was. I nearly fell out of my chair when it happened. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And this is a given with Marvel movies, but stay during the credits. There are 2 post-credit scenes that set up Spider-Man's place in the MCU going forward, and hint at the direction that the MCU's heading in for Phase 4. I'm hyped, and I'm sure you will be too. Unless you're a DC fan, in which case, why did you even see this movie in the first place? Spider-Man Far From Home is thrilling and compelling, and really makes me appreciate how far Tom Holland's version of the web crawler has come since his debut in Civil War. This movie takes the most risks with the character and puts him in a situation we've never seen him in, and because it succeeds, I can say with the utmost confidence that this is my new favorite live-action Spider-Man movie. Into the Spider-Verse is still the best overall in my opinion, but this one is just as satisfying to me as a fan of Spider-Man and Marvel in general. So, would I recommend you go see Spider-Man Far From Home? Sure. As the 23rd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this movie makes for a triumphant conclusion to Phase 3 and paves the way for new stories and characters to come. By the way, have you ever realized how old Samuel L. Jackson is? Here, let me just take a look at this. He's turning 71 this year? Man, that guy looks great for his age. Aldo, thanks for watching everybody, and a very special thank you to the patrons on screen, as well as my superstar supporter for this month, Henry Newman. Thank you, thank you, thank you! If you'd like to support me as well, then please consider pledging to my Patreon page, or becoming a sponsor by clicking the join button. These are totally optional, but it would certainly mean a lot to me. Links to my social media and Discord server are in the description, and if you want to stay updated on my future uploads, then be sure to ring that bell, because apparently clicking the subscribe button just isn't enough anymore. Thanks, YouTube. Well, anyway, thanks again for watching, and with that said, this is Marc, bidding you all a smashing farewell. Take care.